Hello everyone and welcome back to another gaming news video. This week I've split up this video portion into two sections because the first video was covering the DMCA issue regarding Twitch, and I discussed things that were occurring leading up to the news report that was just given to us via the Twitch blog the other day. So all of the links for that issue are listed in part 1, where I just discuss everything regarding the DMCA issue. And for part 2, I'm going to cover the rest of the stuff that I intended to cover along with that. So, many of you may remember this article. This article was released in 2018. This was a very huge deal, and to a degree still is today, which we'll get into. And it's talking about the culture of Riot Games, the company behind League of Legends. And it goes into massive detail about how many women were abused and harassed within their own company, and the fact that they couldn't even arbitrate legal proceedings against the people in the company because of the laws within the contract that they signed to join the company. The details of everything regarding Riot Games and where this started, why it started, and whatnot are all covered in this absolutely massive expose, and it is 100% worth reading when it comes to this. Now, about a year after that, I want to say, maybe a little less than that, the issue regarding Riot Games went to court. And there were hundreds of women that were harassed and abused while working at Riot Games, and it became a class action lawsuit. And when it went to court, the courts ruled in favor of the women and told Riot Games that they had to pay out. And at the time, their dollar value just did not seem high enough for the amount of damage that was done to many of the women that worked for Riot Games. And if you mathematically broke it down and went, okay, there's X amount of women that were part of the class action lawsuit, and you broke down based on their salary and how long they had worked there and endured all of these awful comments by their colleagues and friends, that the value just simply wasn't enough. So I believe they brought it back to court and tried to get more money. I will have to look up whether or not they won the case for more, but this prompted Riot Games to adopt a new policy and try to be better at not being sexist assholes within their company. And honestly, I don't believe that that really worked out very well. And part of my reason for that is because of how things have been ongoing. So we go to the second article, a Game Industry Biz article, where Riot Games is once again seeking individual arbitration in the class action lawsuit opposing the studio to former employees, accusing it of gender discrimination and sexual harassment. This would take the case out of court, with a neutral arbitrator attempting to settle the dispute between parties. The women involved in the lawsuit would also need to file individual arbitration actions. Riot Games already attempted to move the case to private arbitration hearings back in April 2019, arguing that the women involved in the lawsuit had signed arbitration clauses with Riot when they were hired. And this is what I was talking about. Because of the terms of the contract that they may or may not have read when they signed on with the company, they were told that there were certain clauses with respect to arbitration. And just for you guys know-how, I opened up the American Bar Association official website. An arbitration is a private process where disputing parties agree that one or several individuals can make a decision about the dispute after receiving evidence and hearing arguments. Arbitration is different from mediation because the neutral arbitrator has the authority to make a decision about the dispute. If you are in mediation, if the parties agree to something, they can then go into court and say they've reached an agreement and that they are ending the court case, and whatever they agreed upon in mediation would be, pushed forward, would be acted upon. But if the parties brought forward information in the mediation meeting, things that are said in mediation cannot, at least in Canada, cannot be brought into the courtroom as evidence, and mediation is not a guaranteed thing, where arbitration is something that you can use the evidence and the arguments in order to get a decision or a resolution. The arbitration process is similar to a trial in that the parties make opening statements and present evidence to the arbitrator, which is also not something done in mediation. In mediation, it's just the mediator is a neutral party trying to help the two parties come to an agreement, but it's not designed like a trial. It's trying to get people on the same page and seeing if there is a way they could do it without incurring further legal costs, whereas arbitration is similar to a trial. So, compared to traditional trials, arbitration can usually be completed more quickly and is less formal. For example, often the parties do not have to follow state or federal rules of evidence, and in some cases, the arbitrator is not required to apply the governing law. So, I went to college for paralegal, and something that is important to know is the rules of evidence are extremely specific. There are circumstances in which evidence is allowable in court, and other times where the evidence is not allowed in court because it doesn't fit one of the rules to allow evidence to be in. And it can be very dicey and very interesting. I will use an example extremely quickly, not related to this, but one of my statements from a couple of years back, well, many years back actually, there was what is known as the Gomeshi case. I will see if I can find a link to that. But he was found not guilty at the end of the massive process, and I do believe it also had to do with sexual assault of many women. He was found not guilty, and everybody I knew was pissed because they were like, he's totally guilty and he definitely did all of those things to those people and da 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 da. And as a person who has taken law, a very important thing to know is that not guilty is not the same as innocent. What it means is that there was not enough evidence brought to court or allowed in court to show beyond reasonable doubt that he was guilty of the crimes that he committed. And on top of that, part of the reason why they had to find him not guilty is obviously it wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt because it was a criminal case. But on top of that, many of the women on the stand perjured themselves. They lied about the situation. And when you have so many of your witnesses going to the stand and being found to lie about the situation, it means that there isn't enough evidence to support the fact that the guy was guilty of the crimes that he committed. And a lot of people were outraged over it. As I said, not guilty does not mean innocent of the crimes they're accused of. It just means during the court case, there was not enough brought forward to definitively show that this person did the things that they did. That is one of the things that you have to worry about when you're in a court situation. If you're in arbitration, you don't have to worry about finding the right way to bring in the evidence. Anyways, so the reason I'm talking about Riot Games and sort of the lead up is this obviously was not the first time that Riot Games has been accused of harassing their employees. And the fact that they've been going through a lot of legal issues with respect to it. But also, even though they said they were changing their culture and that they were going to be better about, what is happening at their company, then we have an article from Tuesday, which is Riot Games investigation says there's no evidence that CEO harassed female employee, and they will not take action against Nicolo Laurent. So, this is an interesting statement just in its entirety. Riot Games is closing an investigation into whether CEO Nicolo Laurent harassed or discriminated against former employee Sharon O'Donnell, saying it found no evidence of the claim. After review of the results of the investigation, Riot said in a statement, there is no evidence that Nicolo harassed, discriminated, or retaliated against Ms. O'Donnell. The special committee has also expressed its full confidence in Nicolo's leadership, that no action against him is warranted, and that he will continue to operate as CEO. The Washington Post reported that the news earlier today, and Riot posted an overview of the investigation's conclusions as well as a letter from Laurent. The Post also reports that Riot asked a court to speed up legal proceedings for a suit filed by O'Donnell earlier this year, attempting to move the case to arbitration, which, as we've previously stated, arbitration does not have to follow the strict rules of evidence, which means that they probably want to bring forward evidence that wouldn't normally be allowed in a courtroom, which means that if they don't have that evidence available, it means they're probably guilty of something. So, Riot, the studio behind games like Valorant and League of Legends, opened an investigation into Laurent following O'Donnell's lawsuit. A former executive assistant, O'Donnell, alleged that Laurent made inappropriate sexual remarks and demeaning comments about her gender. She also alleged that she was fired after refusing sexual advances from the CEO. Now, this is something that is very frustrating because it seems to be that many companies use money and use courts to effectively hide the fact that they're scummy as shit. And this is also one of those cases where I will never touch anything by Riot because of how they treat their employees. I am not going to fund their front of their actions, and just I'm not going to let them get away with it, and that's a personal decision. You don't have to follow that. If those are games that are interesting to you, by all means, but if the industry is going to change from this awful behavior, shit needs to change. People need to stop supporting companies that are full of scumbags, especially when the lead up to this has been several years and the allegations continue to flow out. It's very telling. If it were not true, we would not continually see news reports like this. But there have been enough of them over the years that something is going on, and all it takes is a couple of bad apples to sour the whole group. I'm sure there are many lovely people working for Riot Games, but I will never support them because of shit like this. You know, the article continues. These claims against Laurent were part of a much bigger controversy involving Riot's company culture. Several employees echoed stories about pervasive discrimination and harassment at the studio, leading Riot to apologize and promise changes, including suspending the company's COO for 2 months. In addition to the suit from O'Donnell, Riot is currently pushing to settle a class action gender discrimination complaint. A report yesterday suggested that Alienware had ended a partnership with Riot following the allegations. Riot declined to comment on the claim at that time. As you can see, this is an extremely big issue. Several people have been accused of being scumbags. And while we're on the topic of scumbags, some of you may have seen my tweet where I basically said fire Bobby Kotick. Kotaku, published an article yesterday. Activision Blizzard CEO to get even bigger bonuses while others get laid off. Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick routinely gets millions in stock bonuses every year based on how the company is doing. Now he's set to get even more for a total payout of nearly $200 million, according to CTW Investment Group, a union pension fund advocacy organization. And it's all thanks to a clause in his contract that was recently triggered by the company's strong stock performance throughout the pandemic. So, as the Call of Duty's maker CEO, Kotick gets bonuses based on helping the company hit profit targets and other milestones. And because 2020 saw Activision Blizzard's stock price jump dramatically as millions turned to games to distract themselves during the pandemic, he's on track to collect all of the incentive bonuses he missed in recent years, in addition to the tens of millions he already earns annually due to a shareholder creation incentive clause in his contract. So, we're gonna talk about this. Here is the actual contract. Here is the shareholder value creation incentive. In the event that, at any time prior to December 31st, 2021, the closing trading price of a share of the company's common stock equals or exceeds 2 times the average closing price of the company's common stock as determined during the period beginning on October 1st, 2016 and ending on December 31st, 2016, after taking into account any adjustments as defined below, and remains at or above that level for at least 90 consecutive days. Any then outstanding equity compensation awards granted under Section 6A hereof that are held by the executive shall become vested with respect to 100% of the shares subject thereto, with the number of shares subject to performance-based awards determining determined assuming attainment of the maximum level of performance. Wow. Wow. I would just like to make note of the fact that at the top of this contract it spells out his base compensation. Okay, base salary. The company shall pay to the executive a base salary in respect of each calendar year of the company or portion thereof during the employment period. During the employment period, the base salary shall be at the annual rate of 1,750,000 beginning January 1st, 2017. The base salary shall be paid in accordance with the customary payroll practices of the company at regular intervals, but in no event less frequent than every month, as the company may establish from time to time for senior executive employees of the company. So he already makes almost $2 million a year, and then he's going to get 200% of that bonus on top of all of that. And if you watch Yang Yi's video, he talked about how the years or the points in which you're to get a bonus based on a certain level of performance, he did not meet those performance values. He did not do what he was told was part of his job, but he still gets the bonuses anyway. So, to go back to the Kotaku article, in March of 2016, the company's stock price was around $32 a share. By last March, it had climbed to 56. Remember, we're talking about March of 2020 when the pandemic started. The shares had climbed to $56. And in the year since the pandemic began, it only climbed higher, peaking at over $100 at one point last month before settling back down to just under $92. Because the stock has remained over double what it was when Kotick's 2016 employment agreement went into effect for over 90 days, the shareholder value creation incentive provision was triggered earlier this month. On March 1st, 2021, the performance conditions for the 4-year performance period from 2017 to December 2021 or 2020 underlying these performance stock unit awards were achieved at the maximum level. While the increase in Activision stock price is somewhat commendable, as we stated last year, and continues to assert, this achievement alone does not justify such a substantial pay outcome for the CEO, CTW Investment Group researcher Michael Varner said in a statement. In a phone call with Kotaku, Varner called a maximum level payout the C-suite equivalent of running a 6-minute mile, and said Activision Blizzard is basically retroactively awarding Kotick gold medals for his past performance based on the latest stock price. This pisses me off in so many ways. We're in the middle of a pandemic. He's getting bonuses and more money and record-breaking years as time continues. And we all remember that in, 2019? Yeah, 2019. I wrote in Jaggy's Corner, Activision Blizzard announcement is that the company had a record-breaking year, solidifying themselves as the giant AAA company to live up to, or tear down as the case may be. The company downsized by 8%, meaning that about 800 people lost their jobs. This is what provoked my multitudes of reactions, like fear for the friends and casters of Blizzard's esports division losing their positions. I become upset at the fact that some of the New leadership was hired on with several $1 million bonuses. And then I was happy that social media tried to do what they felt was right and just, in that game development companies tweeted their available job positions. Through a mixture of emotions, I became upset once more because the gaming industry, the consumers, are missing the fundamental issue hidden within this news. While I'm not excusing the company for screwing over a lot of industry professionals in favor of more profits, I'm going to shed light on a couple of realities leading to this week's layoffs. And I talked about that particular week that was published on February 16th, 2019. And Activision Blizzard wasn't the only game company to lay off a bunch of their staff. It was actually back to back game development companies all laying off people that week. So it wasn't just 800 people that lost their jobs because of Blizzard, even though Bobby Kotick made ass tons of money. But ArenaNet also laid off a bunch of people that week as well, which made me fear for a lot of my friends. And I think in total that week there was more than 2,000 people that were stuck without jobs. Now remember, these are people who had regular, stable jobs with families, with lives. And here, once again, is Bobby Kotick making ass tons of money, and it's disgusting. But then, just to make it better, just in case you thought everything was fine, Activision Blizzard Esports announces layoffs. Activision Blizzard Esports will lay off around 50 employees, according to a report released today by Sports Business Journal. Update. Reports suggest the total figure of laid off employees is actually closer to 190. The layoffs come as a cost saving and restructuring measure, according to the company. Cost saving. You've had yet another record breaking year. You continually smack people to the curb by saying, hey, look at us, we're such a great company, and then you lay off more employees. Now, I get that many of the people who were laid off were people that were critical in live events, and the results of the pandemic have certainly made it so that people cannot go to live events, meaning that those positions are not necessary right now. But giving the excuse that this is a cost saving and restructuring measure because you're going to now look at digital events and seeing how successful those can be, you're still raking in ass tons of money and you're not even helping the people that you employ. Blizzard is just disgusting under the direction of Bobby Kotick, and fuck them and boycott them. I'm sorry. I am so done with Blizzard Activision. I don't care what game you decide to latch on to. It is not happening. I will not give you any money. I will not buy any shares. You can go fuck yourself. That's all I've got to say on the matter, because this is ridiculous. People are dying because of a virus. They can barely afford to get groceries or to get any necessities whatsoever because of the whole situation and to stop the spread. And you're sitting there on your fucking happy little chair going, ha ha ha, I have billions and billions of dollars and oh, I don't need to worry about my employees. Fuck them. They're obviously not in a position to do what I do, which is nothing because you clearly didn't meet your performance goals. So, fuck you, Bobby Kotick. Serious. The last thing I want to discuss is Pokemon Go. This is going to be relatively quick. Pokemon Go's eggs aren't loot boxes, they're fun presents. What? Fun presents? Oh, I'm sorry. Were we trying to be EA? Surprise mechanics, because that's what loot boxes are, and they continue to tout that to the courts, and have found certain games in EA to basically be banned in certain countries because of the gambling predatory tactics that they have. This is ridiculous. Anyways, moving on. Pokemon Go's developer Niantic is testing a feature that lets players see what might be inside the game's eggs before they walk the many miles to hatch them. It appears this is a response to the argument that the game's eggs are akin to loot boxes. There is an awful lot that could be better about Pokemon Go, but I would argue that demanding its eggs be held to the same standards as the most cynical and cruel of EA Activision loot box behavior really isn't necessary. The latest change to the free-to-play mobile app is a neat way to see what Pokemon could possibly hatch out of any egg you might collect while playing. Listed in order of possibility, you also get an idea of just how unlikely it might be that out of any particular egg will pop a shiny version of the rarest beast. It appears this is another step towards providing more transparency to players who are frustrated by grinding for rare monsters, only to receive yet another Trubbish. Okay, as a person that does play Pokemon Go, I like the fact that it is a mobile game that allows interaction, that lets people get together and do raids, that lets people go out and walk and get some exercise, because a lot of people stay indoors and don't realize the health risks of sitting down in a chair all the time. But I don't deny the fact that eggs could be considered loot boxes because you have to buy the incubators in order to hatch those eggs. You're given one incubator that has an infinite lifespan, but until you walk the distance in order to hatch that egg, your incubator is now taken up. So if you don't have the money to purchase other incubators, or you're not given any through events or whatever it happens to be, then you only have the one incubator to deal with. And frankly, I don't see it as big of a deal as other games. Because when Pokemon Go came into the market, everybody was playing it. Everybody was excited about it. They're going out, they're walking, everybody's talking about the Pokemon that they've got, etc. And today, I don't know very many people that still play it. There's a couple of people who will regularly send me gifts through the game, but the majority of the people who I have on my friends list haven't opened the app in a very long time. And that's probably because they already got to a level that they were comfortable with, and they got bored of it and moved on to something else. The reality of Pokemon Go, my issues with the game, have little to do with the eggs and going after the specific shinies. It has more to do with, going into a raid or something like that, and because of the data usage you have for your specific phone, sometimes there's a hiccup in the network and you're booted from the raid, and you might not get your rewards for participating even if you were in it for the majority of the raid. It's a bit more clunky in design. The idea behind Pokemon Go is awesome, but the argument that people have for loot boxes for Pokemon Go specifically, I don't feel is as big of an issue as other free-to-play games who have a loot box system similar. Sure, it'll be nice to see what types of Pokemon that I can get, but the sort of conclusion to this Kotaku article is that I am glad Niantic are making it easier to know what might come out of an egg, but personally, I'll never be looking. The surprise when an egg appears on screen ready to crack open is why they're fun. And I kind of agree with this article writer. Yeah, you can definitely say these are the same as loot boxes, that the eggs don't give you the rarest of Pokemon and it can be super difficult, to play the game without investing money. I have not spent a dime on Pokemon Go, and I am content with what I have. It's just something fun and interesting to do when I'm out and about walking and I get to hatch eggs, and who cares if I'm only doing it one at a time. So I just kind of look at this like, what are you gonna do? Anyways, that's it for me today. I'm sorry this was broken up into two parts because there was a lot to cover. With that said, you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.